It's a parade inside my city. Yeah.
Memphis Grizzlies star Morant has been suspended for a second time after once again appearing to flash a gun on social media.
I'm sure everyone by now has heard about the Morant situation. We all know what he's been doing recently would not be considered good by any means. But the question is, are people overreacting about the situation? First, we must discuss what actions Morant has been doing. It all goes back to when Ja first flashed his gun at the strip club, right? Well, not exactly. The first well-known instance was in July 22nd, 2022, when allegedly, don't want to get sued, he was accused of punching a kid. Ja was accused of punching a 17-year-old kid over a pickup basketball game. Apparently it happened at Morant's house, which he repeatedly punched the kid multiple times in the head. Then after the scuffle, he later went inside his house and returned with a gun visible on his hip. The 17-year-old made a police case, but no arrests were made. If no arrests were made, then most likely this could be either out of context or made up, or even there just wasn't enough evidence to actually bring up any charges. But Morant did admit that he did throw the first punch. So already right there, that is not a good look. If it is true, it's especially not a good look. But yet again, we don't know exactly what transpired. So we'll give him the benefit down that one, I guess. The second instance of Morant's behavior was on January 29th, 2023. It was following a game against the Pacers. A security guard from the Pacers claims acquaintances of Morant was flashing them with a red laser from a gun. I wasn't able to find too much information if Ja was in the car, pulled up in a car, and were flashing lights at the security for whatever reason. Maybe they're trying to spook the Pacers and the organization for some reason. I don't know. Then the very popular incident that got Morant suspended. Early morning, March 4th, Ja was on Instagram Live. Then he flashes a pistol on the live for everyone to see. First, going live in a strip club is one thing, but to flash a gun is a whole nother level. The league then went on to suspend Ja for 8 games, and he later apologized by saying, "I'm sorry to my family, teammates, coaches, fans, partners, the city of Memphis, and the entire organization for letting you down. I'm going to take some time away to help and work on learning better methods of dealing with stress over our well-being." That is an interesting way to relieve stress, by going on Instagram Live in a strip club and flashing guns while listening to music. There are many other ways to deal with stress. To me, that doesn't really seem like he's relieving stress, but you never know. Going to a strip club, flashing guns, like that would most likely relieve stress for most people. While stepping away from the team, he also went on to some counseling on the situation, and that's awesome, man. You would think, okay, maybe he was feeling it and he made a mistake. I mean, you know, we all make mistakes. Maybe he didn't know flashing on a live is a bad thing. Maybe he learned from his mistakes. Well, you would be wrong to think that. On May 13th, 2023, he did it again.
Oops, she did it again.
He was yet again on Instagram Live, where he yet again flashed a gun. They were listening to music, and it looks like his friend, he was just trying to see Ja vibing, and then Ja pulls out the blicky, and then the friend quickly put it down and ended the live. Which it seemed like he was trying to save Ja, but apparently he cut ties with him. If that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. But it did seem like in the video he was trying to help Ja, but maybe you shouldn't. Maybe he didn't know he was on live. I don't know, but flashing your gun on a camera for the second time, that's crazy to me. Even if this is just one instance of this behavior, I think it would still be bad. But the fact is, this is multiple instances of this behavior, which in my opinion is a very bad look on his part. With all this stuff happening recently, there have been many reactions from the fans, players. Most takes that I've been seeing have been that of the same. People have been saying that Morant will be one of the first players out of the league. Instead of trying to make it to the league, this man's trying to make it out of the league, is what it seems like. Now, with all this being said, are people overreacting about the Morant situation? Most people agree that everyone has been reacting just, for the most part. But there are some people who think people are overreacting. And one notable person is JJ Redick. JJ Redick said, "Why are we trying to lay down the hammer on a 23-year-old who didn't break a law, when there's no consequence for Greg Abbott telling people to buy more guns?" I like JJ's takes almost 9 times out of 10, but for me, this one is a miss. And let's break it down a little bit. Firstly, including his age of 23 was pointless here. You're an adult. It would be a lot more valid if Ja was 16, like, oh, he's just a kid. He didn't know better, you know, he makes mistakes, but you're 23 years old. And from what I can tell, he doesn't come from gang background. To me, it just seems like he's trying to fit in, maybe to the Memphis crowd. I'm not exactly sure. But then JJ also bringing up a separate issue, which is on the topic of politics and gun control and all that. But bringing that up to talk about this is completely irrelevant. But just for me, it's not a valid justification at all. It's not even related. I don't want to dive deep into the Greg situation just because I don't know too much about it. And I don't want to get too political on the matter at all. I just want to state how JJ's reasoning was flawed. But besides JJ's defense, one of the other defense I've been seeing, like from Blockboy JB of all people, guns aren't illegal. They're completely legal, which that is true. Guns are legal. But I feel like this situation is completely different. It was never a question of a legal issue. It's always been an image issue. NBA is a professional organization that has standards that it needs to withhold. You expect to see professionalism amongst all the players. They have multiple advertisers. Like, not every advertiser, if any advertiser, is going to want to put their money into people that are flaunting guns like it's a toy. And one of the biggest issues that kind of hits more home for me as an NBA player, you have a responsibility to be a good role model. Kids growing up will be looking up to you, just as I did as a kid with Kobe. Some kids may not have a good role model in their real life to look up towards. They find someone who is really good at what they do in the sport they love, and that person can kind of become a superhero to kids. And if that superhero is flaunting guns on Instagram, kids may think that's okay. Oh, my favorite player does it, so let me get into guns. Ja Morant is a hell of a basketball player, and he reminds me a lot of Derrick Rose. But being as good as you are, you have to be a good role model for the upcoming generation. Flashing your guns on Instagram Live where there could be kids watching is a terrible move. According to Stephen A. Smith, there has actually been talks around the league that believe Ja Morant won't be alive in 5 years, which that is a crazy thing to say / even think about. But is it really an overreaction? I would say no, honestly. People say the people you hang around plays a massive role in your future. Involving yourself in gang-related activities could definitely increase the likelihood of dying young. I would say that is the worst case scenario. Flashing a gun is a little bit different from, going out and actually robbing and killing people. But yet again, his entourage that he hangs out with were flashing guns with a laser at staff members of the Pacers. Which, like I said, I'm not 100% sure if Ja was in that car, but that's the people you're hanging around with. And if they're doing that, that just doesn't put you in a good situation at all. The league plans to announce what they plan to do as punishment for Ja after the NBA Finals, but there have been rumors he's going to get at least a half-season suspension, which honestly, I think that's a pretty fair punishment given all the circumstances that added up, not just a one instance. If it was a one instance, like, you would get probably talked to or suspended like you did the first time, but this is third or fourth time of this kind of situation happening where it's like a question of like gang relations. Some people are calling for a complete ban on Ja for the NBA, and like, I can see your point, but I do think it's a little bit extreme just because, one, like, he didn't break any laws. Like, that is a valid argument. Besides the whole role model thing, like, because he is a really good player, like I said, but it doesn't excuse your actions. But if there was like arrests made or charges filed against him for doing that violence and on top of flashing your guns, it's hard to want to have a player like that in your league, no matter how good of a player you may be. And NBA players or any professional athletes are going to be held with a higher regard, and that's for a reason. You have a lot of people watching you and you're making a lot of money, so you kind of need to stick to their guidelines. You're getting paid all this money, man. Like, just follow what you're supposed to do. But are people overreacting about the Ja Morant situation? No, they're not. But at the same time, I don't think he deserves a complete ban from the NBA. Not just yet. I guess you have to give him one more chance. Put him through some counseling during those, like, if he's suspended for the half of the year, like, you got to make sure he's getting the counseling, he's actually doing strides to improve himself. And the funny thing is, I forgot to mention about his apology for the second instance of flashing the gun. His apology was straight from ChatGPT. And here it is right here. It's pretty much the same exact thing. So making an apology is a little bit hard. Like a professional apology. So I get it. Maybe someone on his PR team used it. I don't know. But I think it's kind of funny. Honestly, the biggest question I have for the NBA and this whole situation as a whole, if Ja wasn't as talented as he was, do you think people would react the same? Or would he just get booted from the NBA even faster? Or would they just not even care because it's not a good player, so it doesn't have all that attention? I don't know, but I think the fact that he is a good player makes it so you have to do something about it. If he was some scrub, like, I mean, whatever, dude, no one's following you anyways. Let's be real here. There are very minimal people compared to Ja Morant, who's one of the best point guards in the league. And if you guys enjoyed my first video on the channel, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And other than that, have a good day.